today we're doing a full meal, and it's lasagna. And lasagna consists of basically like 3 different recipes. One of them is the cheese, one of them is the marinara, and the last is what I do is a walnut crumble. Now that's kind of to simulate maybe like a ground beef. You don't necessarily need to use walnuts. You could use any other nut of your preference. I find that walnuts have a nice kind of meaty flavor, and they're very satisfying. And really what it comes down to when you're simulating like ground beef or is the spices. So sage is the main kind of meaty spice.
Yes. For how many people we're going to be cooking today? So that way I don't do like the whole amount and I don't do for
Okay,
us.
so I updated the recipe this week and made it to where it's like 2 single servings. We're going to start with our zucchini. This is in essence our pasta. And there's a couple different ways you can slice the zucchini. And as I mentioned, you want nice straight zucchini. You don't want one of the little bendy ones. Don't worry, we're gonna use, we're gonna make the most to use everything that we have in terms of the, all the pieces of the zucchini. So I'm gonna show you first with the mandolin. So this is one way to do it. Of course, you could just do it with your traditional, with a knife, but you're not gonna get even slices. So the mandolin I'm using has 2 variations. This one side is a thick cut, and then this other one is a thin. I'm going with the thin, and then I cut off the bottom end. Okay, so this zucchini has a little bend. It has like a little arch to it. I'm gonna actually use, I'm gonna use that to my advantage. I'm gonna put the bend against the mandolin, and then I'm gonna use pressure to flatten it out. And so this is kind of what it looks like. And I usually do it over the casserole dish. I'm pushing to get the little bend out, and I'm sliding down on the mandolin. And the first few slices are just gonna even you out. I'm actually gonna cut the end off because this one, the curve is actually getting in my way. So here we go, and this should be a nice piece, a usable piece. Almost, so we're getting close. We can actually use this, but what we want is nice, uniform, long pasta strips like that. You see that? Nice and thin, nice and long. At a certain point, it goes pretty smooth, and you just slide. Now there's another way you can do this. For folks out there that have a potato peeler, who's got the potato peeler? Gonna do the potato peeler technique. All right, Lucy, can I help you with this?
No, look.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. What are you using?
My knife, my cheese knife.
Oh, you're just using your knife. Okay, cool. And who else you got? Melanie, I'm pretty sure you got this.
Well, you know what? I started off with this, which is a ceramic mandolin thing.
Yeah.
And that worked okay, but actually I'm really liking this.
Yeah, that's what we found when we did another class, and I worked with another group, is they were really excited that the potato peeler, I was impressed how well that works. And once again, I put the bend down, and mine's actually a little broken, so I have to support it underneath. I'm getting it. Don't throw these little pieces away. We're going to use those. The ends, no, we're not going to use. But the little giblets, they don't have to be perfect because you're kind of gonna cross, kind of like shingling a house. You're gonna overlap them. You can double them up too. And if you feel like your zucchini is getting a little narrow on one side, you can just flip it and do the other side, and it'll even out. My measurement wise, I usually 2 zucchini give you more than enough to do 2 lasagna. In terms of strips, when I do layers, I do 3 wide and I do 3 high. So you want at least 9 really nice full strips for each lasagna. And eventually that'll make sense because we'll do the assembly.
What kind of dish are we going to be using?
I'm doing the assembly on a dehydrator screen and sheet, but for folks at home, you can do this in a casserole dish, especially if you're going to serve it the way, like right after preparing it. I like to do the cheese before I do the marinara. So the cashew cheese we're going to do in a blender. You could do it in a food processor, but usually you'd have to be making a lot of cheese to be enough to get the food processor. In the blender, it makes it nice and smooth, and that's what we want. We want a nice and smooth cheese. Pre-soaking the cashews helps to make them blend smoother. If you have a Vitamix or a Blendtec, like a high-powered blender, it's going to be your cheese is going to be smoother. Other blenders might have, be challenged to give you a smooth cheese, but if you pre-soak the cashews, especially like more than 3 hours, you soak them overnight, you're going to get a nice smooth cheese. I got my pre-soaked cashews. I got some nutritional yeast.
I don't have that nutritional yeast. So.
Okay. Well, it helps give you a kind of a cheesy flavor, but it's not totally critical. You have miso, right? From
yes.
our last class. Yeah, so the miso is going to help as well. It's going to give you a little cheesy flavor. The lemon juice is also good because it gives you some sourness.
Adam, are we dumping the water from the cashew soak?
The cashew, that's going in the blender.
Oh my God, I just dumped it.
Soaked?
What's that?
With the water that was soaking in it? It was in it?
Yeah.
We want that water.
Yeah. I use filtered water. If you didn't use filtered water, then don't. But yeah. Usually what I do is I put a little hydrogen peroxide in the water so it sterilizes. And when you blend the hydrogen peroxide, it actually just, it dissipates and turns into water anyway. So that's a little preventative that keeps, just in case you have some bacteria or something not so good in the nuts and seeds. All right, so I'm getting my lemon juiced, and I'm using the fork technique. It's a patented technique. Okay, and then cashew. Okay, we got 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. So I probably need a little bit more. You could use lime juice, even though lime has a little more, a different flavor, different sour note. If you didn't have lemon or lime, what could you use instead?
Vinegar.
Vinegar? Did you say vinegar? Yeah, apple cider vinegar. And that will give you your probiotics as well. Because I'm putting the miso in here to get probiotics. But the raw apple cider vinegar's got probiotics as well. So, and miso goes in, and it's about 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, about a tablespoon of miso. I put 1 clove of garlic, depending on how much you like garlic. You can put more, you can put less. You could even not put garlic in it, which would be sacrilege, but I know all about life without garlic. So I got my water here. I'm going to add that 1/4 cup because I know that we'll need it. And then I'm going to keep this on reserve just in case. We want a smooth consistency. And so I want the cheese, for me, I want the cheese runny enough that I can use it with a squirt bottle. And you want to blend it smooth without any little chunks in it, because you get one little chunk and it won't come out of the squirt bottle. That's nice. I can taste the sour. Cashews are inherently sweet, so you get this little sweetness. So you can dial up the sour to kind of compensate for that, and then also add a little more salt if you feel like it.
Actually, this is really good. I like this.
It's delicious.
Nice. And you can do little variations with it if you want to add like black pepper. You could add paprika or any type of. You could add jalapeno and make like
now you're talking.
a jalapeno cheese. Yeah, so you can really have fun with this. Now, if you have a dehydrator, and you make a ton of cheese, and you're like, what do I do with all this cheese? You can spread the cheese on a dehydrator sheet and dry it, and basically make a Romano or like a cheese crumble. And so you can use it like, sprinkle like a Parmesan. I make the cheese first because I'm not planning on cleaning the blender. I just empty it, and then I make my marinara in the blender with the whatever's left from the cheese. I'm not concerned about mixing the two. The marinara is similar to the cheese in where it's a foundation, kind of a base recipe, and then you can add other ingredients to it if you want to kind of specialize it. You could make, afterwards you could add capers and olives to make what's referred to as like a puttanesca sauce. You could add some red pepper flakes to make an arrabbiata sauce, the hot spicy sauce. Here's my soaked sun-dried tomatoes. You can see that. It's really important to pre-soak the sun-dried tomatoes. I can't emphasize that enough.
Why?
Because sun-dried tomatoes are your blender's worst enemy. Next to date pits, but you never should put date pits in the blender on purpose. Usually that's on an accident. So the sun-dried tomatoes are super tough. So pre-soaking them, especially if you're not using a Vitamix. I know you have a Blendtec, Lucy, so you should be all right. I pre-cut them into smaller pieces just to make it easier for the water to soak in and for the blender to do its thing. If you didn't soak your sun-dried tomatoes, I would not put them on the bottom. I would put the fresh tomatoes on the bottom. They're gonna blend up first and give you a more liquid consistency to help hydrate those sun-dried tomatoes. But I mean, it's not impossible to do without soaking them, but it's much better results if you do soak. I'm just using the Roma tomatoes. I find them to have a really mild, like, they don't have the best flavor. The sun-dried tomato, though, makes up for that. And sun-dried has got very concentrated flavor. So if you have, like, if you're lucky enough to be up north and it's tomato season and you get some really delicious tomatoes, I just make a salsa fresca, a fresh salsa, fresh marinara, and I don't even put, I don't bother with the sun-dried tomatoes. To me, the sun-dried tomatoes make up for mediocre tomatoes. It just adds a more potent flavor, kind of like adding tomato paste. I'm gonna put in the tomatoes, the sun-dried, on top of the regular, and I put the water in. The water is gonna have a ton of flavor in it. A note about shopping for sun-dried tomatoes: sometimes they're packed in salt. You got to read the package and make sure if there is salt added to the tomatoes to adjust your recipe, or you're going to end up with a marinara that's way too salty. Also, sometimes tomatoes, the sun-dried tomatoes, they're packed in oil. And if they're packed in oil, they're usually packed in salt as well. You can use those. You don't necessarily need to soak those. Just, pull them out and measure them and add the oil that's on them is fine. That'll actually add some flavor to the recipe. Just keep in mind the amount of salt, and wait, like, make the dressing or make the marinara and then wait to the very end to add the salt. And if you're doing the dulse flakes or the nori sheet, that adds a saltiness too. So you kind of have to play with the recipe to adjust for that. I'm actually going to add a little bit of lemon juice to this recipe. I want to add just a little bit of sour. Sometimes you can also add, in the end, we're going to taste it. I sometimes add coconut palm sugar. I add a little bit of sweetness if the tomatoes are mild. The dulse flakes give you that ocean saltiness. So that's my tribute to spaghetti with clams. This is the spices measured out. I got the olive oil on standby. I'll add that. If your sun-dried tomatoes are packed in oil, I wouldn't really, I'd hold back on adding any olive oil, or cut the amount in half. Okay, I got everything in there. Put the hat on. And now we will blend slowly, ramp it up. You want to let the blender kind of draw down the sun-dried tomato, and then marinara, and you need to scrape down the sides and then get the air bubble out and run it again. All right, so I'm gonna give you the blender cam view, see what it kind of looks like. So that's what I got going on there. It's very fluffy, and not a lot of the liquid is not separating, which is nice. And the flavor, a lot of flavor. I'm missing a little bit of a sweet note.
Would a date work?
A date would work too. So, you know, I would pit and cut the date and add it with the sun-dried tomatoes while they're soaking, and then it'll blend nice and smooth. But yeah, I definitely feel like this needs a little sweetness. My 2 tablespoons of olive oil. So 1, 2, buckle my shoe. I find it's kind of neat to taste it before you put the olive oil in and after. I find it actually, it changes the flavor profile in a better way. Even though this is pretty good the way it is, the olive oil seems to just add, just kind of turns it up a little notch, gets the flavors in harmony. Kind of mellowed out the saltiness. This to me was a little salty. Now keep in mind, this is going on the zucchini and we're layering it. So you want a nice.
Can I put paprika?
Sure, you can put paprika. Any of the zucchini scraps, aside from the tip and the tail of the zucchini, the little skin edge pieces, this is when we use them. We're going to use them in the ground beef. This is similar to what we did last week, where we're just pulsing in the food processor. So you want to kind of pre-cut a little bit so you don't have any really big chunks, but then you don't need to do it super fine. I've actually made this walnut crumble. I've used tempeh, either do half the amount of walnuts or pretty much 1-to-1 tempeh to walnuts, and I pulse it, grind it, add the flavors. You don't have to cook the tempeh, so you're actually getting the raw, the benefits of all the probiotics, spices. I throw my walnuts. I pre-measured these. With walnuts, I like to rinse them and then pour off the water, just because walnuts are can be a little funky. I actually pre-soak my walnuts and then I sterilize them I put hydrogen peroxide in the water and let that kill any bacteria, rinse them, drain them, and then dry them, which is a little, an extra step that I go through to prepare those. So I have the walnuts in here, the zucchini. I have my paprika, which is 1 teaspoon. So it's about more. Teaspoon. All right, sage. Once again, we got sage. This is the go-to spice whenever I'm making something you want like a meaty flavor. So the sage is definitely a unique and useful spice, and a little goes a long way, so there's a half teaspoon in there. And then I used up all my oregano in the marinara, so I went out in the yard and I harvested some fresh oregano, so that's going to go in here. And remember, when you use fresh herbs, you want to use 2 to 3 times as much. Dry herbs, a little goes a long way. Fresh herbs, double or triple the amount. Okay, and I'm pulling it off the stems because these are pretty woody stems. The walnut crumble, as we call it. We put about 2 teaspoons of the tamari in there. And so kids at home, you should be measuring this. Don't do what I'm doing. Don't eyeball it till you're confident that you can eyeball it. in that regard, always err on the side of too little, because it's the darndest thing trying to take it out. All right, so I'm going to pulse this. Okay, and the consistency, we're almost there. Looks pretty good. Okay. Okay, so here's the consistency that we're looking for with the crumble. It looks kind of like the stuffing, but this is a little different. I think it needs a little more salt. A little pinch of salt in there. And then we get to assemble. Now remember, this is, we're layering all this between the zucchini. So if it turns out your marinara is like super salty, then you want to make the cheese. And ideally everything, each item is at least salty enough, because the zucchini is gonna mellow all the flavors out. So you want it to be a little bit on the flavorful side, because you're combining and layering. With the dehydrator sheet, you put your non-stick sheet down. Now, if you're doing a casserole dish, you do this just the same. This is a really big casserole dish for what the amount we made. So I would use one of the half size. But the procedure is just the same. If you did it in a casserole dish, you just make one large lasagna, like you're making a traditional lasagna. The way on the sheet, like I'm doing now, is I'm making a single serving lasagna. These zucchini strips have a thick side and a thin side. Well, I alternate them. I put one thick side up, and then I put thin side and overlap. And then go back again like this. In the casserole dish, what you would do is you'd go the length, whatever the length of the dish is. So you want to go from one end to the other, and then do your next layer, or you do your overlap. So now that you got your first layer, you do a cheese layer. The question's been proposed to me: what comes first, the cheese or the marinara? I just tend to do the cheese layer first, because I do, basically it's cheese, zucchini, marinara, zucchini, cheese, and crumble. I like one layer of marinara and 2 layers of cheese. If you're more a marinara person, then you do, now you could go stack it even higher, but that's usually where I stop. Now you could put ground beef crumble on every layer. It's just, this is creative. Kind of, you could do it different every time, and it'll be delicious every time. This is why I like using the squirt bottle, because I can easily get it like this. Now, the other way to do it would just be with a offset spatula, with a butter knife, is you plop it on there, and then you just spread it. And remember, you want 9 slices, nice slices per lasagna. So that's if you're doing the single serving, like I'm doing. Okay, so now I just covered the cheese. I didn't need to spread it. When I use the bottle, I don't need to spread it. I just squirt it evenly. With the marinara, I didn't squirt bottle, put it in a squirt bottle. So I'm going to show you. This is how you do the cheese as well, if you're just using a spatula. So, and once again, with a casserole dish, you just spread it. You're going from edge to edge. Now, at this point, you could put some crumble in on the marinara layer if you really wanted to. I think I'm going to do a little crumble. A little bit of crumble. Don't go crazy. Now, if it turns out you get done and you have leftover crumble, what I do is I dehydrate it, and then I keep it in a sealed container, and then I use it throughout the week, or I even use it if I make lasagna again. I mean, it keeps once it's been dried out, it'll keep, and that adds like a nice crunchy crumble. But you can also add it to soups and salads. Once it's dried, it's stable. And now I put another zucchini layer. You guys noticing the pattern? So last layer.
Last one?
Well, for me, I like, because I'm doing the single serving little lasagnas.
But I can keep going, right?
You can keep going, especially if you have a casserole dish and you just want to.
Yeah, I want to make it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, if you even want to go more, you can add a little more cheese. You can put fresh herbs. And since I like to dehydrate it first, what I do is I save one tomato and I slice little tomato circles, nice and thin, and I put them on top. So, and then I actually had a little hemp seed, so I sprinkle that on top because it kind of gives it a nice little look, just to give a little contrast. So that's, I mean, okay. Show you the masterpiece that's gonna go in my belly later. Now for the dehydrator club, I put this on, I usually do like 125, and I rotate it every 15 minutes. This will start sweating really quickly. So the folks that put it in the casserole dish, when you assemble it, the zucchini starts, and all the ingredients start giving off the water that's in them. So the zucchini is going to start sweating, and you're going to get kind of like a soup. That's so if you want to kind of remediate that, you would put it in the oven on the lowest setting, and it would help to kind of reduce that liquid. Now, also, you just serve it. It's like ready to go. So that's what I recommend. If you got it if you're doing it in the casserole dish, you serve it as soon as possible. And if you're doing the dehydrator, you can dehydrate it and then rotate it. I actually take a spatula while it's dehydrating, and liquid will pool up around the sides of it, and I actually scoop it up and I pour it back on top, and it absorbs back in. So it just concentrates the flavor. And then once it's dehydrated for about 2 hours, it becomes really like stable, and you can refrigerate it at that point, and just eat it later. So that's the one little challenge with this, is if you're not dehydrating or using an oven to pull out the moisture, the liquid that's in the zucchini, you pretty much need to eat it, within a few hours. And you'll notice it. I mean, you can even look at it. I can see now that the bottom layer, there's a little bit of liquid.
It's a pretty liquid right here.
Yeah.
I have a question. So I have a quite cute, and I can put it in the oven right now, very, very low. Either though
Yeah,
I want
you
to eat
could
it,
you could
but
put
I want
it.
to eat it later.
Yeah, put it in the oven on the lowest heat. You could use like a turkey baster and suck up if there's liquid pooling, you could suck it up and pour it on the top. So it just kind of it'll evenly dry that way instead of it getting crispy and dry on the top and still being soggy on the bottom. You just draw it up, you put it on the top, and it'll dry from the top and the bottom at the same time. So that's like a little.
And for how long I'll put it in the oven?
Oh, well, until you want to eat. So I wouldn't, you could probably leave it in there for a couple hours if you could put it in the refrigerator now, and then like 2 hours before you want to eat or an hour before you want to eat, you could put it in on warm. But like I said, I would draw any of that liquid up, draw the liquid from the bottom and put it on the top, throughout the drying, so you don't have this uneven. Uneven. It looks good. Take pictures. Everybody take pictures.
I did. I already did.
Awesome.
So Adam, if you don't have a squirt bottle, how do you make it look pretty on top with the sort of,
You do the Ziploc bag or the plastic bag piping. Either that or you can spread it, and then you put the crumble on. If you see what I did, the tomatoes kind of hide if it looks kind of messy. And so you layer the tomatoes and then you sprinkle some, like I did with the hemp seed. The walnut crumble also gives some contrast with the cheese. So it looks good.
Well, I'm still kind of working on it.
Okay, it's looking good. You
Yeah.
got a lot oh, wow.
I need to get a squirt bottle to make, here's my mom's.
Wow, nice.
We need squirt bottles to make them look pretty, like yours.
Okay. Yeah, do the Ziploc bag technique.
Oh, there.
Hey, she's keeping it a secret.
Mom to the rescue.
Oh, look at that.
That's nice.
That from Chile?
Yeah.
Wow.
She just messaged me. She has bad connection, so she sent me a picture.
That is so
What
pretty.
are those capers? What did she put on there?
I think she made herself a little pesto.
Oh, wow.
Or like
that.
it looks like it's basil. Yeah.
Beautiful.
I gotta ask her.
Yeah, so that's a great addition. If you wanted to do layering, you could make a marinara and make a pesto, and you could have 3 marinara pesto and cheese and do.
Yeah, she just answered. It's pesto.
There you go. That's like the Italian flag. All right. Chianti, actually, Maria is the wine specialist. What would pair well with tonight's lasagna?
Oh, you put me on the spot. Because everything is fresh. Even with the marinara, I would say a lighter red. It
Okay.
could be either a Pinot Noir or like a younger Chianti or any Sangiovese. Yeah.
Well, that's what's on the menu tonight.
Thank you.
So we have a wine specialist this evening. So from now on, we'll do pairings at the end of each class.
I like it.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna.
How it turns out.
Yeah, I got to get this in the dehydrator before I get a puddle. And I want to thank you guys again and look forward to seeing everybody who's in for the dessert class. We'll see you next week, next Sunday.
Thank you.
Okay. Good night.